Helen.
Hi.
So what we've been doing is just kind of all through lockdown, we've been talking to authors about their life in lockdown and what they've been up to and how they've been reading and writing. And I've talked to a lot of people and every single person mentions you.
Oh God, really?
Always in the context of, we've been waiting for this book for so long.
Oh.
Like all of the launch and everything. So just, if you don't mind, how has it been for you to be a debut, releasing this really anticipated book, which was so good through all of this?
Like, I started this book in 2013 and I finished the first draft in January 2015. And we sold it in April 2018, and it feels like the universe had a huge joke on me, because back in April 2018, 2020 seemed ages away, and you were there going, it's going to be fine. Thousands of people have published books. I worked in a bookshop, I know how it goes. And in 2020, a huge joke on me. I think it was end of February when I think fake videos started going around of ambulances coming to hotels in Dublin because someone had tested positive, that I started to feel a little bit worried, but it was still distant enough that I went, it'll be fine by April. We'll have this under control. And then March happened and I just went, this isn't going to happen. Everyone kept holding out hope for a physical launch, whereas I'd written it off mentally by early March. I knew it wasn't going to happen. The book is out, and I keep reminding myself that the book is out, and that's the main thing. That is the most important thing, because everything else is kind of extra. But this book had taken so long, and so many people had helped me along the way, that I was just really looking forward to having one evening kind of to celebrate, not just me and the book, but them as well. And yeah, March wasn't fun because I was just too stressed, and I could just kept going every day and doom scrolling, which is useless. But still gone well. I think the books had a good reception. We got it out as close to bookshops being opened as we could, and looking back, I think some of my stress showed on Twitter. So a lot of people were really nice and patient. And even people whose jobs were being disrupted and everything, booksellers stuff, they're all being really patient as me, because we were all in the same boat together. Everything that we'd expected had gone a bit pear-shaped.
You're the only debut, that I think was the most affected. I had been working with a literary agent on a short story collection that I've been working on for 3 years, and in March she called me and said, our agency has decided that it's too much of a risk to take because of COVID. So
yeah,
but it was nowhere near the publication stage. To get dropped by an agent is part of life. It happens. But
yeah,
and a short story collection is always a big risk to take anyway.
but it still sucks.
But it's funny that you talk about, March. I remember, I have such vivid memories of standing. I don't know, have you ever been into O'Mahony's?
Yeah, no, we were there when I was a kid. I bought a lot of books from you guys when I was about 13 or 14. Because we wouldn't go to Limerick a lot, but we would end up there. So
it has all these tiered levels, and I vividly remember there's the school, there's the kids basement, and then there's the school book section, and then there's customer service, and there's this flight of stairs in between two of them. And I was standing at the bottom of the stairs and Claire standing at the top of the stairs, and I was talking about ordering something, and she said, she'll never forget it. She turned and she said, "Be careful now, because this might close us down for about a week."
Oh,
and that was March, and I'm sure, watching it all kind of unravel must have been awful. And I suppose because you do live you're very honest on Twitter, but not in a not in a way that's negative or anything. So I think you were kind of in the forefront of the majority of it, certainly the Irish children's writers scene, because we had all been waiting for this book for so long, and it is so brilliant, because I remember talking to you about it in I think it was 2 years before at a Hachette event or something. You know, we
God.
went out and, you know, so, but I mean, but also you've really embraced the technology side, like the blog tour is happening, and so you're now doing a virtual launch. What's that going to look like?
Me and Dave O'Callaghan, I've known Dave a long time, and because we used to overlap a lot with a lot of like kids stuff in Dublin. So it's going to be me and Dave essentially doing kind of the talking bit that we would have in Easton's, but this time we got Twitter involved in that we asked people to send us in questions. So just going on about the process of the book, we decided that we'd answer people's like questions and get to talk about things that I probably wouldn't have actually come up in the launch, because everyone there would not really have wanted to know, you know, how I built the world, or did I, how, or all the other process of building like a book, which wouldn't have come up in the launch because it was more there as a celebration. So it's kind of a mix between what might have been the physical launch and bringing like online stuff involved as well. So.
And what did your lockdown life look like just in the day-to-day?
My job was safe, so I've been remotely working since the middle of March, and my housemates have been remotely working. So it took us a while to kind of get into routine, because our jobs are very different. Like she had a lot more daily meetings than I would, whereas my work is more just, it involves other like people, but it's more just, it's less meetings involved with that, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it took a while to get a routine going, because I would write outside the flat a lot. Like my process has always been to go to a coffee shop and buy really expensive coffee, and then have to justify getting a word count for spending like £4 on like a coffee. So I suddenly had to be with people constantly and try to write and just deal with the general worry of lockdown and COVID and everything. So we have a routine now. I'm able to read and write again, which is like a relief. I watched so much TV during March, which isn't like me at all. Like I will watch something, but it'll always be more in the background of reading. And we don't know when either of us are going to be back at the office again. So I kind of try to write in the mornings now, and then I start my job. And then depending on how the day goes, I'll try and write a bit in the evenings like as well. It doesn't always go to plan. Sister was talking to me about, I don't do that. I always have to get up and shower and wear like actual clothes I would wear to work, because it just keeps me in that headspace as well.
So you kind of answered my question there, like my next question, like were you able to write during lockdown?
During March, no. Up until we changed the publication date to June, I wasn't really writing. I had plans. I'm working on an adult book, and my deal to myself was that I had to start again, because I kept having to start and stop it because of Queen, and like I'd be in the middle of a revised it, and then I'd have to get like copy edits done for Queen. So then I'd have to drop that book. So I started from the very beginning, and my deal to myself was that every day I would write one chapter. I would revise it. If I end up getting more done that day, because some of the chapters were shorter, that was fine. I'd start again the next day with just one chapter, and I'd gotten about 40,000 words into that by the time lockdown kicked in properly, and then it just stopped again. So I'm hoping to finish that book next month, because I had to put it down for something else, but that was kind of just my deal to myself, one chapter every day, and it didn't matter how long that chapter was, or if I got more the next day, just reset down to one again.
And did you read anything? Were you able to read at all?
The middle of April, I read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and I'd had it for ages, and I went, I don't want a huge fantasy novel. I'd been in the middle of other things, and they were just too heavy. So I said, like, obviously The Flat Share isn't like the lightest read either, but it was just different enough from what I've been currently reading that it just helped. And then after that, once I finished it, I was able to kind of go back and finish other books and start new ones. So I'm back to regularly reading again now, which is a huge relief.
That was the most stressful part of lockdown for me, I think, was not being able to read, because that's my thing and my happy place and whatever. And I was the same. I'd pick something up, I couldn't concentrate on it. And even watching telly, like I couldn't concentrate on anything new. So I was just rewatching old stuff, which just makes me feel like it's even more of a waste of time because I've already seen it. But then I started to kind of reread stuff. And then in the last couple of weeks now, I started to read. I obviously got really caught up in the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff. So I had Girl, Woman, Other on my to be read forever, and I just said it was time, and I'm halfway through it and I'm absolutely loving it. And but I'm glad I didn't try to read it when I was in that really bad focused place, because it's so brilliant. I'm loving it so much.
Yeah, no, it's on my to be read pile as well. I'm hoping to read You Should See Me in a Crown next week. I got the US hardback, but a friend of mine read it and she loved it, so that's hopefully next week, I think.
I mean, but then, like, with all the pushing and dragging and stuff, it was really special that Queen came out in June in the end.
Yeah, I mean, as someone pointed out to me, at least it came out in Pride Month, which was really nice. It was nice, and like I still haven't really been able to properly go see it in bookshops. In one, and I got to sign copies, and I ended up having to buy the Kindle edition, so it will come out on the day it came out, because I couldn't go into a bookshop to buy it on the day it came out, which was like my one promise to like myself. But it was a relief by the end, because it had been building up, and I'd kind of by May just let it go. There was nothing more I could do. Yeah, it's a really weird experience, because it builds up and builds up and builds up, but like nothing ultimately changes when a book comes out. Like I still have to go to work, I still have to do like laundry, still have to write another book. Yeah. You know, because I do think we build up publication date, and like I was a bit more, because I'd been like a bookseller when like it started to show up with people a few days early. That didn't bother me, because I knew that was just how it worked. I think it was just because I couldn't actually go in to see it. I couldn't really hang out with people because lockdown was still in effect. It was a very strange day. I'm really glad it's out there, and I hope people like it. I mean, Well, a friend did tell me after this I can essentially just deal with like anything after this. Like nothing in like publishing is going to faze me.
Well, I mean, I think people romanticize bookselling so much, whereas to me, you know, I think bookselling and working in a bookshop is obviously a very special. It's not like any other retail environment, and it is very special.
Yes.
The reason why we are there for as long as we are, like there are staff who've been in O'Mahony's for 25 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's still a business. And when you've seen bookshop buying and the returns process and the more cynical side of it, I think when you go out to publish a book, it makes you a bit more realistic about what's going to happen. But also, once you publish a book, you know, once you've achieved that dream, there's just a whole other set of problems that...
Yeah. Because like, I know the returns process is a bit different this year because of COVID and lockdown, but like friends of mine in Dubai, I was there going, could you just keep one, copy of the book in there by like December? I know like it'll be a different like season and my 3 months will be up, but if you just keep one or two on the like shelf for like, Christmas, like please.
That's so harsh. We give them a year.
Well, no, we would give we would give them about a year, but the main after 3 months you would start to kind of make the gauge on how many like copies you'd like keep in. So like I was going, if you just keep enough in that it'll just tick over during like December. That's all like I want. I just want a few like December like sales. But no, and I think as well, because like I got some input into O'Brien into the cover purely because I'd been like a bookseller, so my actual reaction, there was 2 covers left by the black and gold, and like I gave them my own personal reaction and then slightly more calculated bookseller reaction. My family kept giving these really unrealistic expectations on sales, and I was like going, no, I'm not reading an adult literary novel. That's not how this is going to go. Like I'm a niche within a niche within a niche. So like I was very calm for the whole process, but I think the reason for it was just cold lockdown. It was like nothing else because I'd worked during the last recession, and like you were saying with like the supply chain, it was seeing the supply chain and the ecosystem break down in a way that it hadn't in the last recession, and that was really scary because even when everything was going really wrong in 2008, the supply chains were still there. We were adjusting. It wasn't just suddenly everything had come crashed down, and that was kind of because I'd no experience of that to fall back on. Because like people kept saying, oh well, you could just release the book, and I was there on the book is stuck in the warehouse. The warehouse is closed. Like the book literally cannot leave. It's not with any of the other, the wholesalers or anything. It's literally stuck in the one place where like the print run is that can do. So I'm literally less than like a half an hour's drive from the actual warehouse. It was the most like frustrating thing to feel so close. I know the book was just there.
Oh
waiting.
My God, that's so awful.
Yeah, because it's just like being like it's the weirdest thing about being with an Irish publisher and being with an Irish distributor and being in Dublin. It's everything is so close.
Yeah.
But
the supply chain, I've never experienced anything like it because we obviously were open. Like, we were kind of lucky because like that we have not to get in and out with the tenders, but like we have a tender with the Limerick prison system. So because the prisoners were locked into their cells and couldn't leave, we had to supply them with their entertainment. So from that perspective, we were considered an essential service, and then we got to go to the guards and say, well, we're there anyway, like how can we, what can we do? And then once it was established that we were never in contact with each other, we were able to go in, but we could only sell what we had on the shelves.
Yeah.
So for 6 weeks, it was literally just, what do we have? Like, what can we sell? And then when the supply chain started to open up again, I mean, we're still feeling the brunt of it, like, and the Penguin warehouse closed, and now it's open, and there's something like 100 grand's worth of orders arriving on top of the school books, on top of the fact that Bertram went under, and now
I know, and Bertram's have the library like tender, and the minute Bertram started to go weird, I kind of went, oh God, the Queen's not even going to get into like the libraries now.
I can tell you, Helen, it is getting into the libraries because they're ordering it from me.
Thank you very much. Oh my God. Is there like a secret like island of libraries?
We got your book in, got it early. We were flogging it early because it wasn't embargoed. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was happening.
I know. It was like, I've been really lucky in that booksellers and bloggers have been really, really behind it, and it's not just been like Dublin ones, because obviously we knew, like I know most of the Dublin children's booksellers at this point because I worked for Dubray for, 12 years-ish, almost 12 years. I think I was short of 12 years by a few months. And I was mostly children's in that time, so we kind of like, it's still nerve-wracking because the proofs started going out a bit early, and it's harder when it's people, if they don't like the book, you're fine. When it's someone you know and know who you've come to know outside of a work context, you're just sitting there sweating, hoping that like they're going to find something in that book to like. They don't need to like it all. They just need to like, they can like the plot, they can like the characters, they can like the cover, but you just hope that they like something, because otherwise it's going to make things really, really like awkward. So it was kind of a relief to not be a bookseller by the end. And like when I left, the contract was still being negotiated, so I was there emailing my agent, because obviously like some people knew, because it's like the guys in Grainne and Dunleary worked with me when the book like sold and when I got my agent, so they all knew, because I was having to deal with phone calls on like my lunch break and stuff, so like there was no way to hide it, because the Dunleary branch is tiny. But outside of them, I wasn't really allowed to say a lot, so I was there like on my last week going, can I just hint that this is happening right now? So the book got announced, I think 2 months after I left, and I'm still going, thank God.
Yeah. And did you leave to write? Are you writing or?
No, I loved books selling, but it was getting to the point where financially and physically I couldn't keep up with it anymore. It's just because Dublin is obviously extremely expensive to live in, as we all know, and also my back and my legs were starting to kind of...
So people don't realise how demanding on your body it is, like...
Yeah.
Oh,
like the amount of Decembers where I would come home and I'd sit down on the couch to take my coat and my shoes off, and I'd wake up an hour later because I actually would have fallen asleep with my coat still on.
Yeah.
And it was just getting to the point where I was in my 30s and just not able, like I was in my 30s, but I felt physically a lot older.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was able to write, but it was easier in Dunleary because the shifts were more structured. Grafton, like Street, there would be a lot more variety of shifts because of the opening hours. But it was just, I was a bit worried if I got published, how could I keep up a consistent output? And it just felt time. It just felt like, and I was also starting to like resent having to sell other people's books, kind of going like, when is my time going to come, you know? Which it was a relief, like, it was a relief and not, because one of the things I always wanted to do was like, if O'Brien got to come in and do a sub and my book was in, then I'd have to get someone else to do the sub, because otherwise I'd like order like 500 copies of my own book. Yeah. They wouldn't have taken that sub, but I would have tried. And it was both kind of nice and not to. Like, I think if I'd been still a bookseller when the proofs came out, it would have just been too hard. Yeah. But also, because I was remote working during this, I kind of feel like I would have been so worried about my job, and if I'd still been with Dupre, like just how things were going to go, was book selling going to survive that? In some ways, it was a delayed good thing that I wouldn't have known when I left in 2018. I don't think I'm explaining this well. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, the demands that book selling puts on your body, and that's stuff that you don't really think about. But I mean, if it was bad before, like now, I get home from work now and I'm the same. If I sit down, I fall asleep for an hour.
Yeah.
Less of a physical demand and more of a psychological demand, because you can't relax, you know, and O'Mahony's, like, I don't know what working for Dupre was like, but working for O'Mahony's is an incredibly relaxed place. You know, it's very chill. Like, we don't, I think sometimes, I've said it to Colette before, like the stars will align and you can sit and read for one day a year. You know, like, people think we sit around reading all day. I hate to burst that bubble, but we absolutely do not. But if Colette's on her holidays and it's a quiet Sunday, you might maybe, if you have all your computer jobs done, you might get a day where you can read. But other than that, but now we're in these like plastic bubbles, you know, we're not allowed out from behind the bubble while there's anyone on the shop floor. So you're kind of sitting, doing all of the jobs that you would normally be doing, but then you can't relax because there's a person there and you're constantly watching them and trying to make sure that they're not coming near you, and you're trying to make sure that you're not sneezing, you know, while they're there. So psychologically it's exhausting. And then on the moment when there is no one there, you then have to run out and try to get as many books on the shelves as you can, then run back in behind your plastic bubble. So yeah, like it's kind of like Christmas week all the time.
It just does feel like December without any of the good things about December in there. I am hopeful bookshops will survive and book selling. It's hard. I just keep wondering how Christmas is going to happen. Like, I do think it will survive, because especially since there's now a really crowded autumn as well, because so many things got moved around and pushed back. It's just going to be really interesting to see how things, because autumn is traditionally the big season anyway, when all like the big guns get brought out, and it's just very interesting to see how that's going to work.
So before we go, you're writing an adult book you dropped there. Interesting. Tell me more.
Nothing is salt.
Okay.
I'm working on two. Nothing like a salt. Like I'm working on a pitch for O'Brien, which is YA, but I'm working on two adult things for my agent as well. If you like, one of the adult things I'm fairly open about, because I was writing it before Queen sold, so there's no point, pretending it doesn't exist now. And that was the one where I was doing the chapter a day. So it's a queer female retelling of the Three Musketeers with dragons, and it's been the bane of my life since 2018.
Oh my God, but I'm so in. I'm in already.
So my agent has seen about 20,000 words of it, and he liked it, and he had some feedback. So I've been trying to incorporate that and then fix the rest of it. But it's just, I'm still working on how to keep a balance between publishing a book and keeping the next one going, because there's no 3 months where nothing happens, where you just get to work on a book after you've published one. The other adult thing I'm keeping fairly close, because that one might not work. But the YA, it's an indirect sequel to Queen in that it takes place a couple of years later, but some of the characters still follow. Okay. Basically, the main character is introduced at the like end. If you read the epilogue of Queen, you know who the main character is going to be. So it's that kind of So you get to see like Leah and Zania and Matthias in their mid to late 30s, and they're the adults of the book now, but they're still involved. So I'm hopeful. There's no guarantees, but I'm hopeful that I've done a good enough pitch that it might work, but we'll see. Queen was always meant to be a self-contained book, but I have ideas for stuff in that world, and I've learned from Queen, because I've written things since Queen, and I do differently in Queen if I could write it again, but I think you can only write the best book you can at that time and then take what you've learned and move on. So the focus in this book would still be as tight, but I figured out ways to bring in world building about the other like countries I didn't really get to do much of in Queen, because the focus is so tight on Leah and Zania that you can kind of only bring in everyone else in like moments, and then they kind of go out like again. So I figured out a way to balance that a bit more. So yeah, hopefully. And magic like comes back and screws everything up. So yeah, hopefully, we'll see. That world hasn't had magic in the guts of 800 years, so they have no idea how to handle it, and it screws everything up, like it's a whole continent wide.
Great. Oh!
Freak out.
Love
basically. It. So, we'll see.
So, thank you so much for chatting to us. When all this is over, I hope you'll come down to O'Mahony's and...
I'm hoping eventually I can leave Dublin.
Good luck on your virtual launch.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.